All right, so the two portions I mentioned, you've got the kind of main skull part, and then you've got this calvarium part here. So you can see the sutures don't, on all the skulls, some of them have nice little orange lines, which show them up really nicely. But even when you can't, you can see the kind of wiggliness. So they interdigitate. They don't just grow as a flat sheet together. They kind of have these finger-like extensions between them. So this would be the sagittal suture. This will be the coronal suture. This is the part of your lambdoid suture. This one doesn't have any sutural bones, it looks like. And you got your bones there. You can see the impressions in here of where little veins would be, arteries and things. Some of the skulls are real, so like this one is a real one. You can tell because it's been beaten to crap. I mean, you can see, you know, how it looks compared to the models. And you can see some of the tooth roots as well. So some of the bones missing or has been reabsorbed. When people have their teeth removed, some of the bone in their jaw gets kind of reabsorbed. So, you know, you see people when looking their face shape changes. It becomes much shorter because you've got a difference of tissue there. At the front, you can see that maxilla. You can see where it ends there in a suture. So even though we don't name all these sutures, all the bones are connected by sutures. But it's only those ones for the calvaria that we'll do by name. So maxilla's here. You can see the nasals here. This is the zygomatic. It's kind of 3 prongs. That's going to be your zygomatic process of the temporal. The temporal is this. That's going to be the squamous portion. That'll be the tympanic portion. And in here, that'll be the petrous portion. So the other reason that this is nice is because you can see through the cribriform plates on the ethmoid there. So that's where the olfactory nerves go, so they can get into that nasal cavity. And the reason I'm going through the real one, which looks more beaten up, is because you can see some of the differences between a real and the fake one. So these nasal conchae, for example, they actually are really delicate little scrolls of bone. If you look inside the nose of any of those herbivores up there, or the cats or anything, then you'll see much more extensive scrolls of bone because they use it for warming and moisturizing the air. In us, our nose is a little bit too short to really do much good, but that's their job, and to catch foreign particles on the epithelium. You can see a bit of the vomer there for the nasal septum. You'll also notice that the septum isn't always straight. Sometimes it's deviated to one side or the other, and that's normal. It just it's a imperfection. So usually the nostrils aren't exactly the same size. Sometimes they are. You can see here the mental foramen, the body, ramus, angle, coronoid process, condyle. You can see the mastoid process, but the styloid has been broken off. So it's good for showing the differences, but it's not as good for showing everything. Well, there's a little sutural bone. Which is, again, something you're not going to see on the plastic ones. And you can see at the back here, this external occipital protuberance. It's fairly weak. So in terms of the differences between the sexes, stereotypically, females have a smaller external occipital protuberance than men would. On most of these skulls, though, it's a pretty well-defined little bump at the back. So, and in here they just kind of represent the nasal conchae like this. It's like a solid block of plastic. And that would be the inferior nasal concha, the easiest one to see at the bottom. When you look up into the nose, you can see a second one, and that's going to be the middle nasal concha. You see those inside the nose? So the lowest scroll is inferior. The one that's highest up that you can see is going to be middle. Superior is going to be really hard to see, but it's just above that. You can see the perpendicular plate here of the ethmoid. See where it goes in, that notch? Below the notch is the vomer. So everything else in front of that is going to be cartilage, making up the external nasal septum. Okay, so that's there. That's that nasolacrimal foramen that I mentioned. So that would be the lacrimal bone. Behind it is the ethmoid. Above it's the frontal. Below it, you get the jugal, and in front of it, you get the nasal. You can always see the depressions for the mandibular fossa, where the mandibular condyle will go. You can see. So for these holes in here, actually, I'll go through this first. This skull comes apart, like I mentioned. So all these bones would be frontal bones, these very irregular ones. So you can see the nice cross section there. But here you've just got zygomatic, maxilla. This one's going to be that inferior nasal concha. And then the vomer, which is this part here, would just slot in there to give you that base of the nasal septum. And you can see the infraorbital foramen there. The supraorbital foramen often just looks like a little notch. If you run your finger along the lower edge of your eyebrow, you can often feel like a little notch where the two bones meet. Well, not the two bones, but where the little foramen is. So that's right there. You can see the ethmoid here completely. So you've got a superior and a middle nasal concha there. You've got an orbital surface. So that's the middle nasal concha. That'll be the superior, and that's the orbital surface. They're right next to each other. You can see the sphenoid here. So you can take it apart so it's just by itself, but the things you need to see here, you can see the medial pterygoid plates and the lateral pterygoid plates. And then you can see the greater wing. And then that part's me the lesser wing. And for the foramina, which I was just going to